Welcome to the next part. Over here we will be continuing with the assertions. Right, I had made this program and I had told you that there can be a scenario which is critical, and in this you want to stop the test and report a failure, but there can be a scenario which is not critical and you don't want to stop the test. You want to continue with the test case after the reporting of the error as well. Right, what assertion does is that it simply stops the program. So we want something which should not stop the program, which is capable of you can say reporting multiple errors in a test case as well. Alright, so that is done with the help of soft assert. For example, inside this class we'll create the object of soft assert class of TestNG. Soft assert class is a class in TestNG, right? And this class will solve our problem. Okay, fine. The problem I'll repeat again. If I run the program, only A is printed, not B. Alright, so what I'll do is that I will remove this assertion and I'll write soft assert dot this object soft assert dot assert equals the actual value and the expected value. Now when I run my program, alright, you will see that there is no failure reported and A and B both are printed. A and B both are printed, the flow continues, but there is no error or no failure reported. This is not good. We want the code to continue, but the failure should be reported. So in case of soft assertions, we need to write in the end a line known as soft assert dot assert all. So soft assert is like a bag. It will keep on collecting all the errors and all. Okay, if I run the program now, just a minute, you will see that it will report a failure. Fine, it will print A and B as well. But it is because of this line in the end. If I put another soft assert, that is say soft assert dot assert equals say A compared with C. So both these failures will be reported in the reports by the end of the test over here when you write soft assert dot assert all. So when you run this, the reports which will be generated will have both the errors reported inside it. But right now you are not seeing the errors. We will see those errors. Right, very soon you will understand how do we see those errors and all. Okay, you'll have to generate extent reports for that. Okay, but there is a difference. There is a difference that soft assert will actually report multiple errors. Okay, it will not stop the program, and assert class, if you write assert dot some function, it will stop the program and report the error. Alright, sometimes you want to directly fail the test case. So you can write assert dot fail. Okay, and you can give some error message as well if you want to directly fail the test case. Okay, you are very sure that the test has failed. So you can also use this type of assertion. Alright, fine. Now coming over to this test, application test. In application test, what you can do is that you can give a reference of soft assert object. Alright, and when the test starts, like this test is starting, fine, you can initialize this object. Probably if you want to report some error or something, you can write soft assert dot fail the test. You can directly fail the test as well with some error message. You can do that. Or if you want to compare something, you can do that as well. So soft assert object you can initialize in every test. Okay, and you can have some validations like soft assert dot assert equals A compared with B, or A over here, this will pass. Fine, but in the end you will always have to write soft assert dot assert all. In between you can have the WebDriver code and all everything, but by the end you should have soft assert dot assert all. Fine. Okay, so similarly in the logout test also you can create the object and you can assert all. So when you run this, you will see that the login test has failed. Other two have skipped because my login test itself failed, and you will see that some error message is put up in the reports because of soft assert. Okay, so you can have soft assertions which will not prevent the execution from stopping. I have failed the test case over here, soft assert dot fail, but login test execution will still be printed over here. You see that it is printed because this is a soft assert. Fine. The next topic, we have seen assertions, how to report the errors and all everything. TestNG reports also we have seen. Okay, now how to parameterize the test cases. Fine. Now how to parameterize the test cases? Well, it's very simple. Fine. Let me take a very simple example. Okay, I'll create a new class known as login test. Now what do you mean by parameterization? Parameterization means that executing one test with multiple sets of data. Suppose I have got this test annotation @test public void do login test, and I want to execute this test with different sets of data. I want to read the data maybe from an external file. Okay, so how do I parameterize this test? To parameterize this test, we use an annotation known as a data provider @data provider. This data provider annotation returns you a two-dimensional object array. Okay, now what is an object array? What is object class? Right, for time being I'll just write over here a return null. Now what do you mean by an object class? Right, let me tell you, I'll create a new class over here known as temp.java. In module 7 also I talked about object class. I'll just tell you over here as well. Okay, now if you have data, what kind of data can you have in a test? You can have a number, you can have a decimal number, you can have a string. Okay, you can have a boolean type. There are different types of data you can have. For example, I can have a string name. Okay, I can put any name. I can put a phone number. I want an integer as well. Okay, I would want to have a decimal number as well. Say this will be double, not an integer. So there are different data types I have to deal with when I am dealing with data. Okay, right. So out here what we do is that we create an object array to keep the data, because if I am creating a string array like this, then in this string array I can only keep strings. I cannot write string the 0th element in this array is a number. It will give you an error because this is a string array. You cannot keep integers or doubles inside it. But if you make array of something known as object class, which is super class of all the classes in Java, okay, sorry, right, you can actually keep any number inside this particular string array. Okay, or the object array, not the string array, the object array. So object array can hold an integer, it can hold a string as well, it can hold, you can say, a decimal number, it can hold a boolean type as well, true or false. So it can hold different types of data inside it, different natures of data, right? Like string, int, boolean, double, everything, right? So what we do is that when we work in Selenium, we keep everything inside an object array. Okay. And what we do is that we make a two-dimensional object array. We make a two-dimensional object array like this. The two-dimensional object array has got various rows and columns. Okay. Now the number of rows in this two-dimensional object array, it represents the number of times you want to run the test case. So over here I have got 4 rows. So each row will hold the data for the execution of one iteration of the test case. So first row will hold the data for the first iteration. Maybe I have to run the data with username U1, password P1, say on the browser Mozilla, right? And the expected result of the test case is that the test should pass. Something like this. Okay, or you can keep the phone number of the user or whatever you want to put. The second row will hold the data for the second iteration of the test case. Okay, right. The number of rows represent the number of times you want to run the test, and number of columns, they represent the number of data parameters you have in the test. 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever are the different data parameters in the test. Every cell has index. This cell is 0, 0, 0th row, 0th column. This is 0th row, first column. Okay, I hope you know about two-dimensional arrays. In the module 2 I had explained you. Okay, this one is 2, 1. Okay, that means the third row and the second column. Okay, because it starts with 0, 0. So every cell will have a certain index. So that's what we do, right? That's what we do when we are making the login test. In the data provider, we make a two-dimensional object array so that I can hold any type of data inside it. Okay, I will have to write over here, I will have to create a two-dimensional object array. I'll create a two-dimensional object array like this. Okay, I'll give certain number of rows and columns inside this array. The first parameter are the number of rows. So I'll write over here 3 rows. That means I want to run the test 3 times, and there are 4 columns. That means I have got 4 data sets, okay, associated with every iteration of the test case. Okay, I'll call this object array as a data array, and then I will start filling. I'll fill my first row. Okay, that is data 0, 0. That means 0th row, 0th column is the username. Say I'll put a dummy username U1. Okay, I'll have 4 such cells, 1, 2 and 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is my first row, and 4 data sets for that: username, password. Then you can write some expected result, that with this username and password the result should be that the test should pass. And then you can have the browser on which you want to run the test. Say I want to run it on Mozilla. Then you can put the second row, right? In the second row, instead of 0 you will have 1, right? And this time you want to run on Chrome, right? And then you can put the, hold on, just be with me. So later on we will not hard code the data like this. We will be reading the data from the Excel file. Okay, if you have seen carefully, then in module 7 I had told you how to read Excel, XML files and all, right? So you'll be reading from the Excel file. right? So I'll put the data right now like this, Chrome, and this should fail. With this username password you should not be able to log in, and this test has to be executed on I. So this is my third row of execution. So you put up the data like this, fine, okay, and then you write the last line, return data. So everything in TestNG is inbuilt. If you want to parameterize a test case, then there are few standard steps which you want to follow. First is that you make the two-dimensional object array over here and fill it with the data. The second step is that, okay, link this test case to the data provider. You have to mention the test case that fine, this is the data provider for you. From this data provider, the data will come in the test. So you will have to write over here that the data provider is the name of the function, get data. And this is the second step, and the most important step is that number of input parameters inside the function should be equal to number of parameters in the test case. Okay, over here I have got 4 parameters in my test case. All of them are of the type string. So I should have 4 input parameters: string username, string password, string result, expected result, and string browser. Okay, so you can keep them like this. Okay, so these are the 4 input parameters. You have to mention in the same order as you have mentioned in the two-dimensional object array. I've kept my username first, then the password, then the expected result, and the browser. So when you run this, that's it. This is the most important thing, the third one. Most people do this mistake. They keep only 2 parameters and mention 4 over here, and then it doesn't work. I'll show you. If I just run this test, you will see that this test has executed automatically 3 times with 3 sets of data. Okay, I never did anything else. I just had the right configuration. If I skip any one of them, I just write 3 input parameters over here and I run it, I will get an error, a configuration error, and it will clearly say that the data provider is trying to pass 4 parameters but the method takes 3. Okay, that the data provider is sending in 4 parameters in this function, but the method is just taking 3. So you have to make sure about it. You have to be sure about it. Now, if you have, say, if I increase one more data type inside this object array and I call it a phone number, suppose. Okay, so I have to put a phone number. A phone number is an integer. Okay, till now we only had string data types inside our two-dimensional object array. What if you want to have an integer as well? Okay, if I write over here string phone and if I run it, I'll get a configuration error again. Fine, that is argument type mismatch. You cannot write as a string. If you write int over here and if you run it, it works fine. So you have to make sure that if you are sending a number, okay, you send it in the right format. If it's a decimal, then you'll have to put double over here. Okay, so this is again one of the requirements of the data provider. So this is how you can run the test multiple times with different sets of data. And yes, if you have an after method function like public, hold on, void after method, I'll just print something inside it. You will see that, okay, and inside the test function, I will just print the username and the password. Only these two parameters let me print. If I run this code, you will see that the after method function is called again and again after executing each data set. This is important because when we will work on grid, okay, we will have to, as I told you in the after method function, you'll have to close the browser. In the before method, probably you'll have to open it. But after method is important. You need to close the browser no matter whether the test is passing, whether the test is failing, it doesn't matter. Okay, after method will always execute, and in this you can close the browser or you can quit the Selenium session by using driver.quit command. Okay, right? So this is about parameterizing the test case. Okay, that is how to run the test with different sets of data. Alright, now in the next part I will be talking about, okay, this was module 9, sorry. I will be talking about how to run the batch, how to execute the batch tests in TestNG, how to run in batch, and advantages of TestNG over JUnit, and I'll also talk about parallelism and all these tools, generating XSLT reports and generating a bat file to run the tests. Okay.